Goodness to you, it's Sporty King. And you know I always say goodness. Why? Because I don't know whether you're watching morning, afternoon, or evening. Isn't it great to have good in front of your salutation? Welcome to Glue Wednesday. You know, I created because so often we hear people say that Wednesday is hump day. And that comes from the traditional use of people saying we work Monday to Friday and Wednesday is the hump to get over to the weekend. But I say not everybody works a traditional Monday to Friday job. What about if you work Thursday to Tuesday? Well, Thursday to Monday that would be. Anyway, I say that Wednesday is actually the middle of a traditional 7-day week. So it's the day that keeps the week beginning and the week end together. Therefore, it's the glue. That's why I call it Glue Wednesday, and I let glue stand for G-L-U-E. God's love undoes everything. And we don't need to hump to get over. We need to find ways to keep it together. And in his keeping it together, in his undoing it, it's not that he will tear things apart, but that his love will undo the tears of sadness to brighten your day. Welcome to Glue Wednesday. My guiding scripture will come from the book of Numbers, written by Moses. It's the story of how the people of Israel failed to enter the promised land because they refused to trust God and were then forced to wander in the wilderness. This book teaches us about the disastrous consequences of rebellion and dissatisfaction with God. Here's the guiding scripture. Numbers 14:29 through 30. Because you complained against me, none of you who were 20 years old or older and were counted in the census will enter the land I swore to give you. The only exceptions will be Caleb, son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, son of Nun. And today's message is about the fact that for 40 years was Plan B. You see, the trip from Mount Sinai to the Promised Land was supposed to be 11 days. The 40-year sentence was punishment for the 40 days that the spies spent checking out the land, 1 year for each day. In fact, I often use it as my example when people argue about forgiveness. I always say I forgive and forget, but the penalty still applies. Thus, I'll add a subtitle of Plans, Patience, and Perspective. Most of us know the idiom, when we make plans, God laughs. Well, I like to add and celebrate an idea and a reason. The idea, when we make plans, God laughs and smiles. The reason, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. The end smiles is because he's not threatening us with his knowledge of will. God is looking forward to us getting where he wants us to go. And our moves, our actions, and our patience are all part of his plan. In 1984, I was transferred to Silver Spring, Maryland as a classified advertising sales rep for the Wall Street Journal. My territory included North Carolina, where I'd visit at least twice a month in the different cities over my 4-year stay before being promoted to sales manager in Chicago. In 1985, I stood on a corner in Charlotte, North Carolina, looked around, and smiled to myself. I think I'll live here. I like it here. I think I'll live here someday. 2010. I became correct. Now, a good friend of mine, Geraldine, said to me, she said, it took you 25 years to move? I responded, nope. I used 25 years before moving. You see, God laughed at my plan in 1985, then smiled as he added patience to my spirit. That patience allows me to preach what I practice from a different perspective. Let me put two seemingly unrelated perspectives together so that you'll never see them as separate again. And then I'll close with a story about what might have been Plan C. From 1558 until 1829, Roman Catholics in England were not permitted to practice their faith openly. Someone during that era wrote a carol as a catechism song for young Catholics. It has two levels of meaning: the surface meaning plus a hidden meaning known only to members of their church. Now, each element in the carol has a code word for a religious reality that the children could remember. I'll uncover three of the elements that will give away the carol's title. You see, 2 turtle doves were the Old and New Testament. 3 French hens stood for faith, hope, and love, which Paul talks about in 1 Corinthians 13 and 13. So now faith, hope, and love abide. These 3, but the greatest of these is love. And 5 golden rings recall the Torah, or the law, the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And just as you now know that was the 12 days of Christmas had its hidden language, the captives shipped over from Africa had theirs. In America, slaves used drums for communication because it was the fastest way to deliver a secret message that could not be understood by invaders or slave masters. Drum beats were played at specific rhythms and speeds which correlated with different signals and warnings. Roman Catholics and Africans had a plan B, fueled by God's hidden laughter, outward smile, and infusion of pictures. Meanwhile, most of us know the story of David and Goliath, how David turned down the use of King Saul's pristine battle armor and used a stone to kill Goliath. What some don't know is that David didn't miraculously perform a one and done. He picked up actually 5 smooth stones from a stream and put them in a shepherd's bag. Then, armed only with his shepherd's staff and sling, he started across to fight Goliath. That's in 1 Samuel 17 and 40. And as the preachers say, don't shout yet. Hold your shout for learning that Goliath was said to have 4 brothers. Therefore, David picked up a stone to send a message to each of the brothers that, there's more to that where that came from. However, though I heard and enjoyed hearing that preached, there's no scriptural proof that Goliath did have 4 brothers. The assumption that Goliath had 4 other huge brothers comes from 2 Samuel 21, where the King James Version phrase used was, which was of the sons of the giant. Still, what's interesting from the viewpoint of faith is that David took 5 stones, not just 1, despite believing in God and his protection. Perhaps plan C, he prudently planned that it might take more than 1 stone to kill the giant man. David also wisely chose smooth stones in order to maximize their accuracy and minimize their resistance to the air. Other shapes of stones would have traveled through the air slower and less accurately. I also read that the 5 smooth stones represent preparation time David had with God, learning to listen, trust, obey, and cooperate in faith action. Thus, it's thought that the 5 smooth stones represent the holy habits that God asks us to develop for life's battles and to strengthen and encourage one another. And that's the message you want to send through your faith. You know the idiom, stop telling God how big your problems are. Start telling your problems how big your God is. Don't get so impressed with David that you forget who you are and what God has brought you through. Because also in his message is the reminder that in order to be successful, you can't put on anyone else's armor. That's why David turned down King Saul's armor. You have to be you. And it's not a good idea. It's a requirement and a gift from God. If he wanted us all to be the same, he could have and would have used just 1 mold. We're different by design and divine. In fact, as 1 Samuel 17:42 shows you, even Goliath wanted to know who David was. So you see, that's why God laughs, smiles, and plays for you and for me. They are and have always been extremely good plans. And A, B, or C, we don't want to hump. We want to find ways to keep it together. And God's love just does just that. Thanks for joining me on another Glue Wednesday. Remember, you can use my book starting today to track some of your plans and smile. Each page gives an inspirational thought, then has room at the bottom for you to write your reaction. In the process, you could be writing your own book of inspirational thoughts. You'll find it at my store through the QR code, where you can also sign up to receive my free monthly fun letter, The Golden Brick Road. Where as we close out January, you'll find out what I've renamed the upcoming month. I'm Sporty King. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for recognizing that you are blessed by God. That, my friend, is plan A. Over and out. Ciao.